Hey everybody, Chandler Bolt here. I'm here with Hal Elrod, which is a good friend, a fellow San Diegan, and one of the most inspirational guys I know. He's the #1 best-selling author of what is now being widely regarded as one of the most life-changing books ever written. It's an awesome book, The Miracle Morning. It's the not-so-obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m. And The Miracle Morning is something I've been using since January consistently, every single morning since January, and it's made an amazing impact in my life. And I know just from hearing from so many other people, and even the Miracle Morning community Facebook group online, that there's just tons of people that swear by this, and it's completely changed their life. Now, one thing, and I'm sure we'll get to this in the interview, and the book has just been a huge success, and we'll obviously get to that. It's got over 700 5-star reviews on Amazon. But what's pretty incredible about Hal's story, and I tell this to people all the time, and I don't know if you know this, Hal, but on like every podcast interview I'm on or whatever, I'm always sending love your way. But what I love
appreciate that.
is the story here is that Hal actually died at age 20. He was hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles per hour, broke 11 bones, died for 6 minutes, and spent 6 days in a coma, only to wake up to face the news that he may never walk again. So as you can imagine, crazy news to face out of a crazy accident. And then shortly after, he ran a 52-mile ultra marathon and went on to have crazy success as a coach, as a speaker, keynotes, all this stuff. But what we're really going to dive into in this interview is his book, The Miracle Morning. He also has another book that we'll talk about as well. But that book and how he's built a business, how he's built a following, and this really a movement off of one single book. And it's blown up into something that I imagine is much bigger than he even thought it was when he started. But Hal, welcome. Excited to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me. My mic is like pinned over here, and so I'll be talking over to the side a little bit to get good audio. My neck by the end will be all cranked out. But dude, glad to be here, Chandler. You're like one of my favorite guys and in this space, and seeing your meteoric rise to success has been awesome, dude.
I thought you almost said mediocre rise.
I almost did, because at times I've been unimpressed with you, but no, I'm kidding.
Oh man, well, I'm excited to dive in here, and I just kind of want to start out by going back to the beginning. So what a lot of people don't know is that The Miracle Morning wasn't your first book. It was Taking Life Head On. So tell us a little bit about that, where the creation from that came, and then how that sprang into the next book.
Yes, the first book, Taking Life Head On. So you mentioned my car accident. I was hit head on by a drunk driver, died for 6 minutes, told I'd never walk again, and then bounced back from that in just incredible fashion. And I felt that actually the doctor suggested that I write a book because I was so happy and positive in the hospital. They thought I was in denial. They thought I was delusional. Like, they're like, it's not real. He's like bottling up all these emotions, and he should be depressed and scared and sad and angry and all this. So I wrote the first book. Took me 6 years because I never considered myself a writer. I just, but I really felt a sense of responsibility to share what I had done and my thought process and what I had done to really handle my adversity in such a positive way. And the first book came out. I worked my butt off. Like, I went and spoke all over the country for free just to collect email addresses from audiences so I could promote the book on the day that it came out. I collected thousands of email addresses. I promoted the book, and I had signed with a very small publisher, like a ma and pa publisher. And I didn't know anything. I was 25, I think. And so for me, when a publisher said, yeah, we want to publish your work, I was just like, oh my gosh, a publisher wants to publish me. I didn't realize it was like a dude and his wife that lived in an apartment, right? And so I worked my butt off. I hit number 6 on all of Amazon. Like the day the day came out, number 6 on all of Amazon, and number 1, of course, in my category. And I'm all stoked, and then my publisher puts up like my book cover on the front of their website. It's like #1 bestseller on Amazon, and I'm all excited. And then a couple of weeks went by, and all of a sudden my publisher stopped. He wasn't answering the phone. He wasn't returning my emails. And to keep a long story short, after weeks of this, another one of his authors, I wasn't his only author, he had like a dozen authors, another one of his authors hired a private investigator to drive out to his office, and the office was cleaned out empty. So whatever money, I will never know how many books I sold to hit number 6 on Amazon, or how much money I made. I don't know those numbers. I just know that it was enough money for him to justify throwing out his entire business and going on the run with all of my royalties. And so I never saw the royalties, and just decided that, all right, there's few ways I could respond to this. And I just was like, I want to share my message. And I immediately figured out I Googled how to self-publish a book, right? And then I self-published that book, and it came out. And this will be important in what we talked about today. If you go to Amazon, the reviews for that book are stellar. There's, I think 80 reviews, and like 76 of them are 5 stars, and the other 4 are 4 stars. There's not a single review at 3, 2, or 1 stars. So people really like that book. However, it hasn't sold tens of thousands, and it's probably sold a few thousand copies or whatever. It hasn't sold, and that was like, it's been out for 8 years or whatever. So hasn't sold an insane amount of copies, hasn't made me a lot of money. People love the book. So there's a difference between writing a good book and writing a book that, I could say a book that creates a movement, but basically a book that gets you the 2 things that every author wants, that very few authors ever get. And Chandler, I'm sure you'll agree completely with this. The 2 things that every author really wants is income and impact, right? That's really ultimately, if you're, not lying to yourself, you'd love a book that impacts millions of people and a book that makes you millions of dollars. And so getting that, there's a certain kind of formula or equation that I got kind of lucky with the Miracle Morning, but I've been analyzing the heck out of what that is. So you're actually going to be one of the first places that I talk about that today.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive more into that. And what's crazy about that story is get hit head on by a drunk driver, die, come back, run an ultra marathon. A lot of people, that would be enough to completely shut their life down, stop, throw the hands up. I'm done. I'm just unlucky. Life sucks. Woe is me. But then you work your way back and then get pooped on by a publisher that then takes all your money to Mexico to buy cocaine and strippers.
The publisher knew my story. Like, what an asshole. How could you do, like, how effed up to be like this young kid who, like almost died and wrote a book about it. We're going to take all his money. So, you know what, I honestly, it's the way I look at people. I'm like, I try to look at everybody with a place of non-judgment. And rather than be angry at him or pissed off, I'm like, dude, you know what? He's obviously going through him and his wife are going through some really difficult times that they would take those measures. So I chose to feel sorry for them rather than feel anger toward them.
Absolutely. So did you end up relaunching that book, relaunching the first book?
Yeah. And I didn't do much of a launch. Like I got it self-published through, at the time it was Lightning Source. Now it's through, and I redid it again through CreateSpace when Miracle Morning came out, because they're both through that. And I recommend CreateSpace, or actually I recommend whatever you do. So I republished that book I don't remember. So it came out in 2006. The publisher stole the stuff right away, and I probably republished it before the end of the year. I'm guessing, if I can remember correctly.
And what was the biggest takeaway, the biggest lesson from that whole experience?
There's probably, I don't know what the biggest one was. It's everyone should write a book.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone should write a book. I think that there are so many benefits to writing a book on so many levels. If you're like, I know you focus on in your book launch, it's like how to write a book to make money and make an impact. So if you're a business person, give you an example. I'm a speaker, and I used to be a youth speaker. I do some youth stuff, but mostly corporate now. But I do youth stuff, and I reached out. I got booked to speak at a high school in North Dakota. And I crushed it, and he loved it, and he gave me all the contacts of every high school in North Dakota. So I called a bunch of them, and this one gal had reached out to me, and she had heard about my speech, and she asked me to speak she wanted pricing. That was it, just pricing. And I said, hey, I said, before I got off the phone, I said, by the way, I said, give me your address real quick, and I'll send you a copy of my book as a thank you, for considering me. She's like, oh, okay. And so she gives me her address, and I send her a book, and I get a call, 3 months later, and she books me for a $6,500 speech at a high school. The most I had ever, I was making like $2,500 a speech, even less sometimes. She gives me $6,500. And when I'm out there, she goes, you know what? It was pretty smart that you sent me that book. I said, yeah, why? She goes, because I probably talked to at least half a dozen speakers, maybe more. you're the only one that sent me your book, and that's why I booked you.
And therefore the only one she remembered, right?
Yeah, she goes, you're exactly. Your book, she goes, I got some brochures from other people. They went into a file. Your book sat on my desk until I finally picked it up, opened it, and started reading it, right?
Right. I think the business card has been replaced by a book. And now, because people can throw away business cards, but there's just something about a book that you can't throw it away. You feel like a wasteful snob, just horrible person if someone gives you a book and you go home and throw it in the trash. So what do? You put it on your desk.
Unless you're an asshole publisher, then you throw the book away and take all the money from the profits. But otherwise, most people. Well, here's the thing, though. You said something I want to make a distinction about. You said the book has replaced the business card. Here's the thing. No, it hasn't. It has for anybody watching this that wants to make that their reality. But for 99% of your competition, they're giving out business cards. So really important to make. Right.
It's replaced the business card for people who know what they're doing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you want to take out, it's a small percentage of people that have figured that out. But yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, what is it? New York Times study: 81% of people want to write a book. Less than 1% of people actually do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, what were some other big takeaways from that first kind of big success but failure all built in one?
So this is a takeaway that I probably articulated recently, but I can really attribute it back then. Mm-hmm. It's that there's three things that we all have to share in a book. So people, one of the big hangups they have, reason they don't write a book, 81% want to, only 1% do. Why is that? One of the things that separate, I think, one is like fear of failure. I mean, there's different things that prevent people from taking the action, but I think one of them is they go, who am I to write a book? What would I even write about? And so the three things that we all have to write about, we have, and this is trademark, Chandler, don't steal this in self-publishing school. We have our story, we have our struggles, and we have our strategies. And all of us have that. And that for me, when my first book, that sense of responsibility to write the book is, I thought, right, I've got a story, I've got a struggle, and I figured out some strategies that turned my struggle around so fast. I would be a jerk if I didn't share those with people. So I feel like we all have beyond just that a book could help us. I think there's, in some ways, we have a responsibility to put our story, our struggles, and our strategies into book form that can help. We don't know how many other people can get helped. And not to mention leave our legacy for our children to read that book and our grandchildren and learn our story and our struggle and our strategies to help their life. And the Miracle Morning is the same thing. It was not a book idea. It was my story of when the U.S. economy crashed in 2008. I went from being on top of the world. I had a 6-figure business, bought a brand new house, bought my dream car, a little 2-door sports car. And then the economy crashed like overnight. Everything crashed with it. And then, so that was my story. That was my struggle. And then I created this strategy that I eventually called the Miracle Morning, because within 2 months, it almost tripled my income, more than doubled it, almost tripled it. I went from being in the worst shape of my life to running that 52-mile ultra marathon that you talked about. And I went from being deeply depressed to being like back on, in my peak form in 2 months. And because that, I called it my Miracle Morning, but it was never going to be a book. It took 4 years for it to be a book. But again, I felt a sense of responsibility that I figured out this strategy that I called the Miracle Morning that changed my life so fast. It was a miracle. And I felt like I have to share this with other people.
Now, 2 questions. What took it so long to become a book, and what was the spark that got it there that said, okay, hey, I've got to do this and I've got to release this new book?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, so what took it for so long is, lack of clarity. What's the book going to be about? What's it going to be, right? Insecurity. Like, who am I to write a book about the morning ritual? Like, didn't somebody else probably write that book? And there's all these other gurus that they talk about it. Like Tony Robbins talks about the hour of power, and Robin Sharma talks about the morning ritual. And I'm like, but the more I researched it, I'm like, nobody's done a book on that. Like, it's part of these other guys' 10 things that they teach. But if you have a limiting belief that says, I'm not a morning person, you're going to take action on the other 9 and you're going to leave that one alone, right? So I realized people don't understand that this is arguably the single most important change you can make in your life to improve your business, your relationships, your health, your energy, is how you start your day. You win the morning, You win the day, you create an extraordinary life. I mean, that's the essence of the formula. And what got me to finally do it, though, because here's the thing: all of us have fears, self-doubt, insecurity, lack of clarity. We're all a freaking mess, right? And I hired a coach. I am a coach, so I know the power of accountability. And one day I had an epiphany. I was looking at my goals, my affirmations, and I'm like, dude, I failed to write the Miracle Morning in 2008 or 2009, I think, is when I started thinking of writing a book. 2008, I failed. 2009, I failed. 2010, I failed. 2011, I failed. It was like every year it was a goal, and every year I failed. And I was like, what's missing? Why can't I do this? And I was like, I don't have any accountability. I have no one holding me accountable. So I was like, that's what I need. I hired an accountability coach, and it went from 4 years of failing to write a book, The Miracle Morning. 4 months later, the book was in print on Amazon, #1 bestseller, and everything was started. So 4 months, I got more done in 4 months with accountability than I got in 4 years without the accountability. So having that some sort of community or support or accountability is crucial.
And I think so many people can relate to that, because so many people just like you have had that New Year's resolution, that goal of, hey, this is the year I write a book. But then year after year, the clock just keeps ticking and they never do it. And it's funny you mentioned the 4 months thing, because that's exactly what we kind of harp on in self-publishing school is, hey, put yourself under the gun, give yourself 3 months. We pair people up with what we call an accountability buddy, basically just our funny name for an accountability partner, and tell the world that you're going to do it, and then agree to your accountability buddy, because it's important to be accountable to a person, but also publicly accountable. Like when you were setting goals when you were back in your Cutco days, which we haven't talked about this on this interview, but same deal, right? You set the public accountability and then you go hit them.
Well, in my first live event, which you were a huge part of, right? That same thing. It was in 2011, my goal, my affirmation said, put on your first live event, get over your fear. You owe it to the world and the people that'll be there, right? And it was mid-2014. I was looking through paperwork in my office here, and I found my 2011 affirmations, and I saw that goal, and I'm like, I am a wuss, right? Like, I am lame. It's 2014, and in 2011, I'm trying to give myself a pep talk, say, get over your fear, just do it, right? And so what I did is I went onto my Facebook, Miracle Morning Facebook community. I said, hey, everybody, mark your calendar. First weekend in December in San Diego, California, our first live event. It's going to be life-changing. And I hit send, and I went, holy shit. I have to find out how to put on an event in San Diego first weekend in December. But obviously, you were part of it. It happened, right? Yeah. Everybody gets the 5-minute journal.
That was a highlight of the event. We'll have to link up or something to that video.
Yeah, dude, we got to find that.
But so let's fast forward a little bit and let's dive into some of the marketing bits, and then we'll move on to monetizing, how the book's growing your business, all that. But so fast forward a little bit. So you've got the book written, all that good stuff, and we're into the marketing phase. We're into the publishing phase. What kind of stuff did you do to get that, to kickstart the success of the Miracle Morning and to market that book?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there was a blog post that really helped for anybody. It was Michael Hyatt. If you just Google Michael Hyatt bestseller, I think you'll find it. But I took a lot of great tips from that. The main one was forming a launch team. So I created a launch team where I put out, I just modeled what he had done, and I put out I made an application on my website, and it said, hey, to create a movement, it takes more than one person. Anybody else that's been impacted by the Miracle Morning, let me remind me of this launch team. I want to back up 1 second, because probably the most important thing I did is, before the book ever came out, I put up an Optin page with the first 2 chapters for free. Actually, no. Before that, I put up an Optin. I recorded a 60-minute audio where somebody just interviewed me, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write. So I just wrote down some notes, bullet points on what the Miracle Morning was and how it changed my life. I had somebody interview me. I took that audio, which was done on freeconferencecall.com for $0. I put that up on a website, but you had to opt in to get it. And I had over 10,000 people opt in the 2 or 3 years while I was twiddling my thumbs trying to finish the book. So when the book came out, and then once I got the first 2 chapters done, it replaced it, and then it went on that Optin page. You got the audio and the first 2 chapters. and it had the release date at the bottom of, the first 2 chapters. Each page was like, hey, get ready to buy the book on this date. And I put that on my Facebook and social media. So more people opted in. Even the 10,000 people that opted in for the chapter or the audio, they came back. So the point is, right, before the first thing you want to do, right, in my opinion, and is you want to get some content around your book, whether it's an audio or the first couple chapters or the first chapter or the intro or whatever, on an opt-in page, and start getting people to opt in. So here's the beauty of it. Before the book ever came out, there were thousands of people who had their lives changed by the Miracle Morning because I taught the concept on an audio before I ever even thought, really got to writing the book. So that's an important first component because that's a big aspect of it. And
One second before you move on to the launch team stuff. What did you do to drive those 10,000 people that opted in, or how did those people find your page?
It was over years, right? So it was, it was over years. It was me. I heard from Dan Kennedy. He said the greatest asset you have is your email list, and he calls it income on demand. If you have 10,000 people if you have 1,000 on your email list, and you're able to get 10% to buy your product, right? You send out an email, boom, you make money. If you have 10 times that many people on the email list, same amount of effort to send that email out, and you make 10 times as much money. So he says, build your email list, and you build your income, right? So so I did it in a lot of different ways. The opt-in page, social media was a big part of it. I also spoke at live events, and I created little, this was like, this dates me. But I created business, I went to Vistaprint and got free business cards that said, put your name and email address, right? And I would go before the speech, and I'd like put those on all the chairs or have somebody do that for me. And then they would turn those in, and then I would go home and spend like 5 hours entering in their name and email address. I would just go to the opt-in page, my own opt-in page, and I would name and email, send, back, and name and email, send. So I put in thousands of people. And then I finally got like the girl that lived next door to me. I like underpaid her like $2 an hour or something because she was young. And then she entered them in for me. And So that's how a big part of it was. I was a speaker, so I was speaking all the time. Yeah,
got it. Okay, and then so keep going with what you were saying about the launch team.
So the launch team. So I created an application for the launch team, and again, this is people that had already, I had 10,000 people on the list, which they had read the chapter, so they were already warm to the idea. Most authors write a book and they're like, "Hey, everybody, my book comes out today," and it's like. Oh, okay, right. There's no momentum. There's no, you need an audience ready for the book, so prime them well in advance, at least months in advance. And so I went out, I said, we have an application for the launch team. We'll accept, no more than 100 people. I think we had 75 apply or 65 apply or something. So I'm like, all right, you're all accepted, and there were requirements to, to be on the launch team. So it said, here are the benefits, here are the requirements, right?
That's great.
Right. The benefits are you get an advanced copy of the book, before the general public, right? We will have a private Facebook group. So these are the benefits. A private Facebook group where we will interact, leading up to the launch of the book. We'll have you'll get a 30-minute call with Hal Elrod, right? Before the book comes out, you'll get, forgot what else, but some other benefits. There's like 5 benefits. The requirements are you read the book in advance and you write a review on Amazon, right? Before it comes out. Number 2, that you share the link to the free chapters on social media. So by the way, that's how I got a lot more of the opt-ins too, right?
Cool.
My launch team was sharing it, at least like once a week they had to share it or something. And then number 3, share any ideas that you have on how we could continue to get the word out, right? That was it.
Love that.
And so they filled out their name and email address and why they wanted to be part of the launch team, right? That's it. And so that was the launch team. So I had an army of 70 people that I could get to help me promote the free chapters and keep building the list and promote the book when it came out and write the reviews. And, I think that out of the 75, I think 32 of them wrote reviews, before the book came out so that they were there on Amazon, when it came out.
Got it. And now, did you have that launch team spread out to media outlets and get you on podcasts, newspapers, TV, blogs, stuff like that?
No, that was before I even really I didn't even know about podcasts. This was 2012. There were podcasts back then, but when I got approached to do my podcast, I was like, who listens to podcasts? And what really, I don't even know what that is exactly. And this was like years ago, he's like, dude, trust me, millions of people listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, so no, it was, I mean, my launch team, they were just, you know, man, I mean, I've done everything wrong. You know, I mean, I've done a lot of things right, but I'd say there's a lot of areas where I could have been much more effective, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if I had somebody like you, Chandler, I mean, interestingly enough, like back then, you know so much, dude, you know way more than I knew when I launched The Miracle Morning about launching a book. You know way more than I did, you know? I was just making shit up as I went along and Googling like how to promote a book and buying books on book promotion, which were all like really old school. They're like,
right.
Go to your local Rotary Club and try to sell 30 copies at a time. I mean, like, yeah. So anyway.
Well, that's great. And just to spitball off that a little bit, we did a similar model with my brother and I put out a book, Breaking Out of a Broken System. So my brother plays in Need to Breathe. And so that he rock and roll band. And so they have a big following. So we got a bunch of applications. We chose like the top 100. And one thing we did off of that is we did the same things, benefits, you know, you get to see behind the scenes of a book launch. You get to do this, you know, private Facebook, all that. And then we would give them an assignment via a video. So a video-based assignment, I'd record a 3 to 4 minute video and I'd have a Google Doc with the instructions. Nice. So we sent our people out to all the blogs, podcasts, whatever. And that was actually a part of the application is, do you have what blogs, podcasts, or whatever do you have direct access to or a connection with? And then they went out and got us in newspapers, got us on radio, got us on all these different things. So they, you know,
that's another next level shit, man. That's what I'm talking about.
But that's great. So you got the pre-launch team, you've got 10,000 people opted into your list. You've got some strong momentum before the book comes out. What else were you doing during launch, like during launch week or kind of once the book is out to really move some copies, storm up those charts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, you know, I had been building my email list for 10 years, you know, so, and actually, I mean, but I mean, it wasn't that big. I probably had 14,000 people on my email list, you know, I mean, nothing crazy. And probably half of those emails were bad because it was over 10 years, you know what I mean? Yeah, so what was I doing? Shit, I don't even know. I mean, it was not, you know, not a whole lot. I mean, I sold 1,400 copies my first month. And that was really just via social media, you know, Twitter, mostly Facebook, email, and that's really all I had. I didn't have a lot. And there were a couple interviews that I did, you know, kind of right around the launch time, but not a whole lot. And if you look, here's the interesting thing. This is probably helpful for your, you know, your students to know. So it's funny. I didn't know until recently how many copies of The Miracle Morning I had sold. People would ask me, how many have you sold? You know, friends or colleagues. And I'm like, between like 30 and 50,000, I think. I'm like, I don't really know. And I finally, I got an assistant recently, an executive assistant, and I had her go through and like figure out all the numbers and you know, Kindle, audiobook, you know, paperback, and then create a graph. And the graph was the coolest thing. So I saw that, you know, we started up here at 1,400 copies month 1, right? And then it went down to like, you know, 700 month 2, and then like 300, and then whatever, right? Like this. And then, but I just kept promoting it, dude. I'm on a mission to change millions of lives with The Miracle Morning. So if you look, I mean, it's like this, like this, like this. And then it just goes up and up and up. And I mean, our biggest month ever in sales was December 2014, 2 years after the book came out.
Wow.
So I haven't stopped hustling, right? I mean, now we're selling more books. So we're going from, so, you know, a year and a half ago or whatever, we were averaging probably 300 copies a month. Now we're averaging 3,000 copies a month, you know, years later. And most books aren't that. Most books are like a big spike and then they just fall off into obscurity, right? Yeah, you never hear from them again, right? So, yeah, so that's yeah, so just continue.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And as I was prepping for this interview, I was thinking, okay, who else do I know that's built a mega brand off of a book? Like not too many people. And Jack Canfield was one of the people that came to mind. You know, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul. That's kind of his thing that he's known as, and then Success Principles as well. But reading about him, he had it's funny the parallel, because he had the exact same thing with Chicken Soup for the Soul. It did pretty well in the beginning, but then hustled, and he had his 5 things a day, or I forget what it was. I think it was the 5 book marketing tasks a day or whatever. and just continued to hustle. And that book continued to go on. And then it went on to be a mega success. So it's cool to see that parallel that, hey, and that should be encouraging for people who have already released their book, is just because you had a mediocre launch or maybe even a good launch and it's fell off the charts, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You can continue hustling and continue driving that book.
It means that you're slacking.
Right. And Hal Elrod's he's no slouch.
That's right. That's right.
So what kind of stuff have you done since then? Like, what do you attribute that growth and sales to? Is it all the podcast, all the, because I know I can't go anywhere without seeing Hal Elrod.
I like it. So there's a few things, and I'll share some insider information. I'm working on a brand right now. It'll be a book. It'll be a program, a product. In fact, we might be competing. We'll have to collaborate, so we're not competing, but we're supporting each other. But anyway, totally. It's called Beyond the Bestseller: How to Write a Book That Creates a Movement, Earns You a Fortune, and Changes the World. And
awesome.
And it's looking at the difference between, okay, well, my first book was pretty well written. People really like it. The reviews are great. No negative reviews, right? My second book, though, is there's this word of mouth phenomenon. And my first book has 80 reviews. The Miracle Morning has 900 reviews, right? And it came out 6 years later. So the amount of people that are so profoundly impacted by it and go write a review, it's the percentage is pretty wild. So here are a couple things to consider. Yeah, writing a good book is the most important component, right? That's the only thing that gives you longevity. And because here's what I believe this, Chandler. If I died today, right? Knock on wood. If I died today, I have no doubt in my mind that the Miracle Morning will sell millions of copies, right? It will just continue to kind of go up and up because it's such a word of mouth thing. So how do you write a book that creates a movement via word of mouth? So the number one thing, most books, I'll give you my number one tip right out the gate here. Most books they influence your thinking a little bit, right? So they get you to think a little differently. But the problem is, right, we have a short memory. And as soon as we're reading, the next book, we already forgot what the last book taught us about thinking differently because we're thinking differently in a whole different realm now with the new book, right? So most people don't have a significant impact in their life from most books that they read. They just feel good while they read it. Like Chicken Soup for the Soul is a great example. They sold millions of copies, but did they really change millions of lives, or did they just entertain people while they read all these really inspiring stories, right?
Yeah.
I'd say probably the latter. I don't want to take anything away from anyone whose lives was changed from Chicken Soup for the Soul. But so the number one key to writing a book that creates a movement is to change daily behavior. If you can change someone's daily behavior in a way that improves or enhances their life in some way, that's how you get word of mouth buzz going. People go, dude, why are you, like for Miracle Morning, for example, why are you waking up at 5 a.m. every day? What the hell? Oh my gosh, dude, it's this thing called the Miracle Morning. Have you read the book? You have to read the book. Mm-hmm. So if you change someone's daily behavior, maybe not daily, but their consistent behavior in a way that adds value to their life, they're going to talk about it. Another tip I'll give you is build word of mouth into your book. How do you do that? Well, a couple ways. Tell a story about how someone shared a book with you that changed your life and how you felt compelled, that you felt there was your responsibility to share it with someone else, and that when you did that, you saw it change their life too. And then so you're planting the seed of how, yeah, wow, if I'm reading a book that changes my life, I should share it with other people, right? So there's a few different kind of stories in the book around that. Another example is I talk about, and this is, I don't know, it'd be different for everybody, but like in my book, I talk about how accountability is the key to one of the big keys to success. We already talked about that earlier in the show. And I say how, don't try to go at this alone, get an accountability partner. And then I go, here's some options. I go, when you're done reading your book, let them borrow it, right? Because I don't want to be right up front and say, dude, go tell them to buy the book, because it's, right? I say, let them borrow it. I said, or if you don't want to wait till you're done reading the book, you can actually have them go download the first couple chapters, get the free video training and audio training at miraclemorning.com. And that's free for them, or if you want to, buy them the book for their birthday or whatever, that's cool too. Right. So, but I plant that seed early on. And obviously, it's either they can let them borrow the book. Well, most people are like, well, I don't want to wait till I'm done, or I don't want to let them borrow my book. I'll never get it back. But option number two is, they can go to my Optin page, right, which costs no one anything, and they get the free stuff for free and they get started right away. So,
Yeah.
so those are some components of how you get the word of mouth kind of, working.
Got it. So was that a couple questions there? Was that referencing of giving books to other people and how it changed their life in the book? Was that intentional, or was that something that you looked back and you said, wow, that worked really well?
I think that was intentional.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I look at with the Miracle Morning, like the success of the book right now, I look at the things I did, and probably 60% of what's working, I intentionally did. And then 40%, I'm like, I never thought of that before. Like, here's an example. Daily behavior change is something that I never thought of that. But now, like, analyzing it and talking to people, I'm like, that's why they're telling people, because they're doing something different every day that's changing their life. Of course, it's going to come up in conversation, right? Yeah. Of course. I mean, if you search on YouTube, right, if you go to the Miracle Morning and you put the Miracle Morning on YouTube and you put it in, you'll see random people that are like, Miracle Morning changed my life, and they have it has 12 views, right? But they're talking about it because it's changed their life, because it changed their behavior. So you got to ask yourself and get creative. How can you integrate behavior change into your content? Whatever your topic or your content is, how can you create daily behavior change, right? And I mean, your book, Chandler, or you have many books, but like the book, Book Launch, for example, I mean, you're getting people to do something that's getting their book in print, that's getting them to join that 1%, right? That 1% instead of the 81% that don't write a book. And so you better believe that people are going, dude, how you wrote a book? How'd you write a book? I fucking read a book called Book Launch,
Exactly. Yeah. There's virality in that. And even in our program, and is when people are on their journey of writing a book, all their friends, their family, their everything is like, hey, how are you doing this? This is crazy. I never thought you'd write a book. And then they can say, oh, well, self-publishing school. And then it kind of builds out from there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Now, the virality and I did want to just touch an example. I just remember this is, so every time I'm on a podcast or a show or anything, and they ask me about how I start my day, or if they ask me about one routine or trait, that is instant plug, because it's a big habit change. So that's a living example of what you're saying there is, well, I'll say, okay, well, I started the Miracle Morning, and if you haven't heard of it, Hal Elrod, his book's awesome. Go check it out. But I started that in January, and go on with the story, and then instant plug to thousands of more people, So that's just an example of that in play. But I did want to have a follow-up question there, which is, what are some examples? How can listeners do this beyond morning routines? People might be saying, okay, I get it, but how can I not copy the Miracle Morning and do something different that changes people's habits? Yeah.
So you can create rituals around your content. So you could have, in essence, you could, like, the Miracle Morning is a ritual. So you can create your own ritual. If your book is called, 10 years to become a millionaire, right? Well, I'm just picking something totally random, right? You can have their daily 10-year to become a millionaire ritual that they do every day that involves, these 3 practices or these 6 practices, where you review your goals, then you write a letter to a millionaire to ask for their advice. You know what I mean? Like, something creative. So it's just, that's how you create some sort of daily ritual, ideally daily. If it's weekly, but I think that the more often they do it, the more it's part of their life, right? And the more likely they're to keep doing it. If it's once a week, then once you miss a week, you go on vacation, it's easy to, but if something's a daily thing, it's like now people that do the Miracle Morning, I'm sure you could attest, they're like, dude, I can't, if I miss my Miracle Morning, I feel like I wait. Like, most people, for example, start out with 5 days a week and they take the weekends off. And what ends up happening is they're like, dude, I wake up, I sleep in on the Saturday, and that used to be cool, but now I'm like, I just wasted 3 hours of what could have been productive time. So they go from 5 days a week to 6 to 7, and they're like, dude, why would I miss this? So you got to have, the more you can have them do that routine. So create some sort of ritual that you have steps where they get to implement, review your content, every single day. It could be a 30-minute routine, could be a 10-minute routine, right? Yeah. Some sort of daily ritual.
And the next thing you know, you're waking up at 8 8 a.m. on a Saturday, sleeping in, saying, "Screw you, Hal Elrod. I shouldn't feel bad about this."
That's right.
Like,
That's
man,
right.
I should have been up 2 hours ago. What am I doing?
And by the way, I will say this, Chandler, to answer your question, what am I doing to continue promoting it? Podcast interviews has been the number one thing I've found to drive sales. I've done 155 podcast interviews, I think, in the last, couple of years. And when I started, by the way, for people, this is important. When I started, like getting on a podcast, people are like, "Who the hell are you?" Right? Like, I never heard of you. I don't. So when it starts, if you look at if I were to make a graph of podcast interviews, I was probably on like, one a week in the beginning, and now I'm on I was on 15 the other week. Like in 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah. So podcast interviews are big. They're free. They cost nothing. People want guests, etc. So you usually come with when your book's done and it's got good content, reach out to all the podcasters and try to get on their show.
Got it. All right. Well, let's move into some monetization and we'll wrap things up.
Go ahead.
So we were talking about before this, before the interview, about how your book just brings in a ton of revenue. And obviously you have some other avenues, and we'll get into that and how you've built off of the book and these other revenue sources and stuff. But I mean, the book for you is a consistent driver of revenue, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm self-published, so instead of making $1 or $2 a book, I think I average about $7 on Kindle and then $8 paperback or whatever. So about $7 or $8 per book, we're selling thousands of copies a month. So it's because people always ask me, like fellow authors, when they go, "Yeah, I heard the Miracle Morning, like I see it everywhere. How are you monetizing it?" I'm like, dude, I just sell a lot of books. Because most people don't make any money on their book. They just make it on their back end. Now, but here's the thing. Because, dude, I'm selling a lot of books. I'm missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue because my back end is not bulletproof. Like, I don't have my funnels and my programs and products automated. But I will say, and I know you wanted me to talk about kind of how is this exploded my speaking and all of that. My speaking fee when the book came out was, I think, like $4,500, right? And now it's $12,500, and I'm speaking more than I've ever spoken before, and I'm not marketing my speaking at all. So, you go, well, how are you? How are you? You're charging more, you're speaking more, you're not marketing it. The Miracle Morning is marketing my speaking for me. Almost every speech that I get is from someone that reads the Miracle Morning and reaches out, they're a CEO or whatever, and they say, "Dude, you've got to bring this content to my people. This book has changed my life, and I want you to bring it. We've got a conference coming up. I know you're a speaker," which, again, of course, I planted throughout the book as I'm telling my stories. I had a dream being a speaker. Never thought, wow, then I gave a speech. Wow, then I was the highest rated speaker that the company had ever had, So I'm building credibility. And then at the end of the book, and I'll show this so you guys can see it. At the end of the book, it says, right, book Hal to speak, right? So there's testimonials, etc. So, so then hopefully they see that. If they don't read, get the hint throughout the book, they see that at the end. And I saw Peter Voogd's new book. It's at the front of his book, right? So it's like when you open it, it's like the third page is like book Peter to speak. So I'm like, son of a bitch always has to one up me, But anyway, no. So, by the way, he's somebody you should interview for this too. Do you know who Peter is?
Yeah. He's booked. We're talking next week.
Beautiful. Yeah, cool, man. Very cool.
And you guys are like
stole all of my ideas. He always steals my ideas or he models them, but he one-ups them. So he's good.
That's awesome. Now, what are some other ways? So tripled your speaking fee.
Here's the
so you said you're good.
Here's the biggest. Okay. And we already mentioned this earlier that Dan Kennedy said your greatest asset is your email list. In the Miracle Morning book, there are like 5 different bonuses that people can get at tmmbook.com, right? That same URL is in there 5 different times to get a sample of the Miracle Morning Journal, to download my personal affirmations, which if you're reading the book, you're learning about affirmations, right? How would you not want to know what is the author reading for himself every day? That's all, right? And it was my affirmations from the year I wrote the book. So they can download those. So there's all these bonuses. I haven't looked in a while, but last time I checked, I was averaging about 1,500 new opt-ins a month from people that were getting the bonuses. That's not including the free chapters page. That page is still up. And for your listeners or your viewers, if you want to get the free chapters or even just see that sequence and see the page and model it, if you go to miraclemorning.com, that's the site to get the free chapters, right? But most of my opt-ins come from the people that are getting the bonuses, which is great because they're warm leads. They're midway through my book going, man, this is great, right? They already have a level of trust and rapport with me because they've gotten value from me. Then they're opting in. So the beauty of it is my email list was 14,000 when the Miracle Morning came out, and I think now it's 52,000 people. So now when my event came out last year, then so how did I make money? Well, I made money because I had 40,000 on my email list at that time, and now instead of emailing 14,000 people asking if they want to come to my event, I'm able to email 40,000 people asking if they want to come to my event. So my goal was 100 people at the event. We had 220 people at the event. It totally exceeded my expectations. So that's a big way of monetizing it, is the email opt-ins. I've also got a back-end coaching program called VIP Success Coaching. Mm-hmm. I get upset when I talk about this because that's the area where my funnel is the most almost non-existent. There's one video on a page that says want Hal to be on your coach, and it's underneath the bonus. People barely even see it. I probably get one person a week, maybe two on average, that sign up for that, and it's a $97 a month group coaching program. And then I just got a one-on-one coaching client from the Netherlands, from the Netherlands and from Australia. It's weird. All my coaching clients lately are from all over the country or all over the world. But they found me from the Miracle Morning. They read the book. In there, I mentioned, hey, I'm a coach, right? I told my story. Mm-hmm. And then they reach out to me, for coaching. So those are many different ways that I'm monetizing. But again, it's all because the book added value to their life. In the book, I positioned myself in the other things that I do. They were mentioned in there strategically. And then people that go, wow, I love this book. And Hal's a coach too, dude. I want Hal to coach. I want him to be my coach, and then they reach out.
That's great. Now, what do you do to monetize that email list?
It's all the things that I just mentioned in terms of my event, my the book, et cetera, all these other things.
VIP success coaching to them on a once a quarter or anything like that?
No. So here's the way that I use my email list is I primarily add value, and I don't pitch much. But it's probably why we had 220 people at my first ever live event, which it was a $500 event. It wasn't super cheap. 220 people there, when my goal was 100, was because so I do a podcast, and I recommend this for just about everybody, including you. Do you have a podcast yet?
Not yet.
Dude, Nick Palkowski, yourpodcastguru.com. He is the bomb.
He's helping my mentor Mitch with his podcast.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Nick's great. So but anyway, my podcast is actually, so I launched a podcast, and again, get an expert with that, because unless you understand how iTunes metrics work and new and noteworthy and stuff, you will miss the boat. The first time I launched my podcast, I didn't know anything, and we didn't, it never really gained much traction. The second time I launched my podcast with Nick, when he understood how it worked, we went from 5,000 downloads month 1 to 27,000 downloads month 3. And all because of iTunes, not because I grew my list that fast. But the point is, all I do with my email list is they get my podcast email every single week that adds value. And then on my podcast, I'm able to mention stuff. Like I have a new book coming out next month called The Miracle Morning for Salespeople, right? And I had a book come out in December, The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents. Well, The Miracle Morning for Salespeople, strategically, it will come out the day that the podcast goes out at 4 o'clock in the morning that says, hey guys, my new book comes out today. Go check it out on Amazon. Well, that's going out to, 50,000 people. So that's how I monetize my email list, by adding value. And then when needed, I ask them to buy something or sign up for something. So whether it's a live event, but I don't have funnels in place that are consistently marketing my products and programs to people. It's just consistently adding value through weekly email, through a podcast, and then they're there when I need them, so to speak.
Got it. So you were mentioning a little bit ago that that's a shift for you, is to dial in those funnels a little bit more and to kind of tighten up that monetization. So what are some of those changes that you plan on making, that you want to make, that will build more back into it?
So for me, like the VIP success coaching program, I'll probably shut it down after this year, which it'll be, I think there's a 4th year. Just because I've gotten very, very, very passionate about passive income, where I don't want to have to do anything to make the money. You know what I mean? Like, I want to create something once and then have it all automated. And that's the area where, like, the Miracle Morning is where I got a taste of it. I wrote a book, and while I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, we sold 50 copies last night. I made $400 while I was sleeping. That's awesome, right?
Right.
One of my mastermind groups, Go Abundance, which, dude, I got to get you to. I don't know if did I invite you to them?
You haven't invited me yet, but I think you might have mentioned it.
Yeah, I got to get you to go. Remind me, text me, whatever. I got to get you to the next Go Abundance event I go to. I got to get you to them. But they focus on horizontal income, which horizontal income is income while you're horizontal, right? While you're sleeping. That's their big focus. So for me, what I need to do to get dialed in is, number one, I need to create the products and programs that are available online. So the first one's already 99% done. I just got to, like, tweak a few things. And it's the Best Year Ever Blueprint. We had a professional videographer record the event. All the videos are online. And so we're going to create that. It's an automated, program where people will do a launch and they'll sign up. And then we'll have it as part of, we will have it as when people opt in, that will become an automated thing where they get, an invitation to that, a couple of the emails with invitations to get the online program or sign up for the live event. So they'll get an either or. And if they want to do both, there will be a special package to do both.
Oh, awesome.
Or we might do where if you sign up for this year's live event, you get the other one for free. Something like that. Right?
Or I could easily see the video program leading in and the upsell is the live event.
Sure. Yeah. So we got to still figure that out. But we're right there, right? And I'm like you, man. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm a creative. I like to create. I'm not a finisher. I'm like, but when I'm halfway through a project, I'm always thinking of the next project, and I'm working on that one. So that's my challenge. I need to just sit down and go, okay, let's finish the last 3% or whatever. But then the next one after that. So I've already outlined what are the programs going to be. And I'm starting with the low-hanging fruit, right? I already recorded the video seminar. I don't have to record any content. It's ready. It's ready to go. I just got to get the funnel situated. Second thing is I'm taking my VIP coaching program. And I'm going to take the best 12 monthly modules that we've ever had, and I'm going to put them into a 12-week program. So, and the angle will be, dude, get 12 months of coaching in 12 weeks, right? It's like get 10 years of experience in a month or whatever.
Love that. That's awesome.
Again, the content's already ready. I just got to go through the stuff I don't like, which is that's why it takes so long. It's like I'm not a details guy. I don't want to go through and sift through. And so I've got Nick doing most of that. And then from there, I need to create a Miracle Morning advanced course or training, and that will be a fully automated, right, online program. But that's really it. Is I've got to get these funnels dialed in, and then and then it'll be experimenting with learning a whole new set of skills, which is like maybe online marketing in the realm of I can promote it through my podcast and all that, but Facebook ads, I haven't done a lot of that, right? Google AdWords, haven't done any of that, So there's still so many components where once we've got all the systems in place with the automation, then I'll be like, all right, how do we market these bad boys? What are some, I'll use all my current channels of marketing, my social media, Twitter, all of that. And then I'm going to, I'll be learning or leveraging experts in other areas.
And that's, I got a great Facebook ad guy, and we're also dialing in the funnels and the paid traffic and all that right now.
Who's your Facebook ad guy? Just curious.
Kurt Malley. He's Facebook ad genius or social media ad genius. He's the guy. He's blowing up right now. He's really, really good.
Nice.
But we're working on a lot of evergreen and a lot of continuity and pushing that out. But we'll have to talk on that.
Yeah.
But you said the first step is the Best Year Ever Blueprint live. That training you said that was the first one?
Yeah, because it's done. Yep.
Okay, what was the second one?
VIP coaching, get 12 months of coaching in 12 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, and then the third one was the Miracle Morning Advanced one, right?
Miracle Morning, yeah, advanced course. And I mean, like, dude, literally, I've lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because if that would have been in place 2 years ago, right? Those 50,000 opt-ins.
Forget about it.
Oh my God, I'd be retired. I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be like, Chandler, I'm on an island. Sorry. But I mean, it's like we can only do so much. And my original intention was to do that. It's just that I got to the point where the book had a launch date, published date, And I got to it and I was still working on the book, and I'm like, I ran out of time, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened, you know?
So what's the timeline for pulling those in?
The best year ever blueprint by the end of this month. So I don't think we're quite going to hit that. We got 2 days. So I might back it up to the end of June, but I want to, I think that for the first two, at least, like actually for all of them, I could probably, because once I get the first one done, you know, which I'm so close to, I'll be like, and it's almost like anything where, like writing a book.
Yes.
The last 10% is 50%, right? Like,
right.
You know, so like most things in life, you get down to the end and you're like, fuck, there's so many little details. Like, I don't even know where to, you know?
And I thought you were going to say, go this route, in the sense that, like, once you do it once, like with a book, like this is the thing we preach all that. Once you do it once, you can do it 500 times. It's so easy.
Yeah.
But the first time is definitely the hardest.
The first time. And once you get where you think you're almost done, you realize there's so many little things you didn't even think about, you know? Like, here's a great example. For most authors, they write a book and they're like, oh, I'm done. I wrote it. Oh man, that was so hard. And then you're like, hey dude, no one's going to buy it. Like, if you don't go nuts on marketing it for like the next 2 years, and you're like, what? I thought that when you write it, if it's a good book, it just does its own thing. It's like, nope. You know, now, I mean, that's what they say, right? The real work begins, you know?
Right.
So for me, once I get one done, then I want to basically start cranking out one a month. And here's a big part too. When my VIP coaching program is done, that time that I invest, which is more than I should, I mean, in a way, I really focus a lot. I create these like 10-page, extensive handouts, and they've got action steps and, habit trackers. Like I go way, like, I'm sure people appreciate it, obviously, but I go so far. And it's because when it was new, I was like thinking, how can I make this the best thing ever? But it's not sustainable because I got to invest all these hours to create this content, and the handouts. So once that's done at the end of this year, all of that time will be replaced with creating automated evergreen products and programs that's all I'll do. So that time I spend on that will be replaced, But by the end of this year, I want to have at least those 3 programs. And then beyond the bestseller, that's another training that I'm going to launch as well. We'll have to JV or something on it. But yeah, so that's my 4th one. So Miracle Morning's the 3rd one, and then Beyond the Bestseller is the 4th one.
Awesome. Well, Hal, man, it's been really cool hearing this progression all the way through, starting with that first book, getting ripped off, the Miracle Morning, grinding and hustling your way to success with that. And then especially diving into not only how you're monetizing so far and how the book's already made you a ton of money from 1-2 books, but also what's to come. And as a bonus, in all of that, it's funny, we were talking about public accountability earlier in this podcast. Now you've got to go create all those courses. It's just,
That's right.
It's announced live. So
that's right.
So we'll circle back up with you on that.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks again for coming, man, and really enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone else did as well.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
Lastly, before we hop off, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you, can find out more about the Miracle Morning or any of that good stuff?
Yeah, my website is halelrod.com, HALELROD.com. If you want to get the Miracle Morning book, which highly recommended, Amazon.com is the best place to buy that, or you can get the audiobook on Audible, or it's on, iBooks and Kindle and all that too. And then, finally got on iBooks after like years of not being on there and people requesting like, dude, get it on iBooks. And I'm like, but I'm Kindle Select. And then I got a check in the mail from iBooks the other day for like $300. I was like,
wow.
I just switched over in January. I was like, oh, I was about to get off it because I'm like, am I even making money? No, I've not gotten paid anything. And I guess they pay quarterly instead of monthly. So I was like, oh, thank goodness I didn't get off. So, and then, but I would invite everybody to join the Miracle Morning community on Facebook. And I know you can speak to this. The Miracle Morning community on Facebook, we have over 15,000 members now from around the world. It grows by like 100 a day. And it has become the most engaged, supportive, encouraging online community that I have ever seen. So even if you don't do the Miracle Morning, if you want to connect with like-minded people that will support you, it's a great community to join.
It's amazing. I love it. Well, Hal, thanks so much, man. Talk real soon.
Thanks, buddy.